Welcome to Mental Health Bites. In this podcast, I'll cover a timely topic related to psychology, answer one of your burning questions, and leave you with an actionable tip to improve your life every single day. Let's jump right into the topic of today. We are going to talk about positive psychology for cynics. So, if you are someone who says, positive psychology, that sounds like it's a little too pie in the sky, then this episode is for you. We're going to break down the history of positive psychology, where it went off the rails, and most importantly, how to course correct so you can actually experience its real intended benefits without all that toxic positivity. Let's get started. First, let's start with the basics. What is positive psychology? Well, this term was popularized in the late 1990s by Dr. Martin Seligman. He's often called the father of positive psychology. At its core, positive psychology is a scientific study of what makes life worth living, focusing not just on what can go wrong with us, but also on what can go right. It asks questions like, how can we cultivate more happiness? How can we thrive, not just survive? This was a huge shift from the traditional focus of psychology, which primarily looked at mental illness, distress, and dysfunction. Positive psychology doesn't replace that important work, it complements it. Seligman and other pioneers like Dr. Mihaly, who studied flow states, focused on human strengths, well being, and flourishing. However, positive psychology isn't just about being happy all the time. It's about cultivating strengths like resilience, gratitude, and mindfulness to help you navigate life's challenges. It's about understanding that well being involves both positive emotions and the ability to deal with those negative ones. But if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, but I've heard a lot of fluff about positive thinking and it's just not for me, you're not alone. Somewhere along the way, the core messages of positive psychology started getting warped, especially in the last decade or so. Enter toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is the belief that no matter how bad things are, you should always look on the bright side. It's this oversimplified idea that positive vibes only can solve everything. And when this becomes the expectation, it's not just unrealistic, it can be harmful. Why? Because it dismisses real emotions, real challenges, and real suffering. You've probably seen this on social media. Influencers and motivational speakers pushing this constant positivity where sadness, anger, or frustration are all seen as weaknesses. This approach can actually increase shame and guilt because guess what? Life is hard. There are ups and downs, and trying to force constant positivity can make people feel like they're failing when they're not. For example, if you're going through something really rough, like the loss of a loved one, being told to just think positive can feel dismissive and alienating. It makes it seem like your pain isn't valid, and that's not helpful. In fact, research shows that denying or suppressing negative emotions can actually make them stronger, leading to more anxiety or even depression. So, how do we fix this? How do we course correct so that positive psychology actually benefits us instead of pushing us towards unrealistic expectations? The key is balance. It's about embracing the full human experience. Positive psychology, when used correctly, acknowledges both the highs and the lows. It's not about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about recognizing that negative emotions serve a function. They alert us to problems, they push us to grow, help us to survive, and they're what makes us human. Where positive psychology can help is in giving us the tools to navigate these challenges. It's not about plastering a smile over a difficult situation. It's about developing resilience. It's about building habits that allow you to bounce back even when things are tough. For example, practicing gratitude doesn't mean that you ignore what's going wrong in your life. It just means finding a small moment of peace during this period of chaos. Mindfulness isn't about forcing yourself to be calm all the time. It's about observing your emotions without judgment. So here's how you can start using positive psychology in a way that works for you, especially if you've been burned by toxic positivity before. The idea is to take small, manageable steps that fit your reality, not someone else's Instagram perfect version of happiness. And at the end of this podcast, I'm going to share with you a very specific and practical tip on how you can leverage positive psychology for your well being. Now, let's move on to the question of the day. Today's question comes from Sarah, who asks, I've heard a lot about positive psychology, but it just doesn't seem to fit with my life. I'm going through a lot right now, and staying positive seems impossible. How can I apply positive psychology if I feel like it's not realistic for me? Sarah, this is such an important question. First off, positive psychology doesn't mean staying positive all the time. No one expects that, and also nobody can do that. What it does mean is finding ways to build well being, even when things are tough. And one of the best ways to start is by focusing on your strengths. We all have strengths, even when we're struggling. For example, maybe you're someone who's naturally resilient, or maybe you have a strong sense of empathy. Positive psychology encourages you to lean into those strengths and use them to navigate your challenges. It's not about pretending everything is great. It's about recognizing what you're good at and using that to get through hard times. So start small. Journal about one strength you've shown recently in a tough situation and how it helped you. Today's practical tip is developing a virtue. This is a core practice in positive psychology that can make a real, tangible difference in your life. And the great thing is, it's not about forcing yourself to be happy. It's about growth, progress, and cultivating qualities that enhance your overall well being, relationships, and career. So, how do you go about developing a virtue? Let's break it down into simple steps with a few activities you can try. You can tailor these to fit your personal goals and your lifestyle. So, step one, choose a virtue. Positive psychology research has identified a number of virtues that can improve different areas of your life. And some of these include kindness, perseverance, humility, gratitude, curiosity, courage, integrity, patience, forgiveness, empathy, fairness, honesty, self discipline, generosity, and accountability. For full lists of virtues and their definitions, sign up for my newsletter and I'll provide you with this resource. But you can also look it up yourself just by Googling list of positive psychology virtues, and that should get you started as well. Think about an area of your life that you want to improve. Maybe you want to have more patience at work or you want to deepen your relationships. Pick one virtue that resonates with you and feels the most meaningful. Step two, set a small, specific goal. Think about a small goal that you can work on around this selected virtue. You're not going to master a virtue overnight. So the idea is to start simply. So here's a couple of examples. If your virtue is kindness, make it a goal to perform one small act of kindness each day. It could be something as simple as sending a thoughtful text to a friend, holding the door for someone, or giving a compliment. If you selected gratitude, try writing down 3 things you're grateful for at the beginning of each day. This is one of my favorite practices. It doesn't have to be big things. Small moments of joy or comfort are just as important. Whatever virtue you choose, your goal should be small enough that it feels doable, but meaningful enough that it challenges you to grow. And step three, reflect and adjust. After you've set your goal, take the time at the end of each week to reflect. Ask yourself, did I stick to my goal most days? How did practicing this virtue affect my mood, relationships, or work? What felt challenging and what felt rewarding? If things didn't go as planned, that's okay. Adjust your goal if needed. Maybe doing one act of kindness every day was too much, so maybe you'll decide to scale it back to 3 times a week. Or perhaps after a couple of weeks of working on one virtue, you want to switch to a different virtue. The important thing is to keep going and not to judge yourself if you fall short sometimes, because all of us do. Here are some additional activities you can try to help develop your chosen virtue. One idea is journaling. Create a daily or weekly reflection journal where you write about how you practice your virtue. For example, if you're focusing on humility, journal about moments when you recognize the limits of your knowledge or asked for help. Take mindful moments. Throughout your day, pause and consciously practice your virtue. If you're focusing on gratitude, take a mindful moment to silently thank someone in your life or to appreciate something small, like the warm cup of coffee in your hands or a beautiful view from your window. For curiosity, try to notice something new in your environment every day. Here's another idea. Take a mentor model. Find someone who embodies the virtue you're working on. This could be a family member, a public figure, or somebody that you work with. Study how they act and apply their behaviors to your own life. If possible, talk to them directly about how they cultivate this virtue and learn from their experience. Another activity is acts of service. Think about your virtue and think about how you can use it to serve others. When you're developing a virtue, it can be super helpful to think about how this fits into your greater community, your microcosm, the people you regularly interact with. So think about how that can create a ripple effect and perhaps motivate someone else to develop their virtues too. Remember, developing a virtue isn't about becoming perfect. It's about making steady, intentional progress towards becoming the person you want to be. Whether you choose kindness, perseverance, gratitude, or another virtue, just remember to reflect regularly and celebrate your small wins along the way. Over time, you'll start to see real benefits, not just in your mood, but in your relationships, career, and overall sense of well being. So, which virtue will you choose to work on this week? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you have. Also, feel free to share this video with your friends and family who might find it useful. Stay tuned for more awesome content, and as always, thank you for your support.